This is your Daily 5 for Thursday, January 29th, 2026. Everybody, it is time for another in a long-running series on this channel of talking about why companies and CEOs don't care about you. And this is another Apple edition because we just have a couple of new entries that reinforce the point that I've made many times, I and many others, but is worth making again and again, which is, to go right back to what I said, CEOs and these companies don't care about you. So if you are an Apple fan, especially if you are a big believer that Tim Cook was somehow a different CEO than all the rest, then you've probably had a rough week between going to the Melania film premiere, a thing that I'm still baffled exists in reality and isn't an SNL sketch, and then issuing a laughably nothing statement about the shootings in Minnesota. A lot of people are looking at Tim Cook with a different set of eyes than they did before, that maybe he is just another CEO whose top priority is making sure that the money engine that is his company keeps printing money. And that must be a really tough thing for them, but it should not have been any type of news whatsoever. The reality is, and maybe this is something that people don't understand, I do hear people say, as a small aside, that any CEO who's like this now was always like this. And I don't believe that's true. I think some CEOs and some companies, depending on how large and how much money and how many shareholders they answer to, I think some CEOs do come in with an idea that they might be able to do some kind of impact. And it's also, if we're going to be completely neutral about it, it's not as if Apple has not made positive contributions in many ways to causes that Tim Cook has talked about believing in and being a fan of and being a proponent of. So it's not as if the company has suddenly turned into some evil monolith that is now, belching terribleness into the world. But there is a point where when you are the CEO of a company, that more and more of what you as an actual person believe, if it does not perfectly align with the direction of the company and its brand strategy, it is simply going to be erased. And you see that over and over and over again. This is not the first time or the first CEO who started out saying one thing and has ended up being completely and utterly devoid of actual action and advocacy in any realm, making, again, these statements that don't accomplish anything. And it's obviously because there is fear of repercussions on the company. Now, if a person leading one of these companies truly believed with all their heart in something, they would not care about those repercussions. The fact that they are willing to say, no, we have to, and I know people will argue, well, that's not a CEO's job. And I agree, it isn't. And that's what I'm making the point about here. The CEO's job, and some have said, well, he's trying to protect the jobs of the employees. Nonsense, get out of here. He doesn't care. What it's actually all about is making sure that the shareholders and the profit margins stay where they are and ideally keep going up. That's what it's about. And I agree, that is a CEO's job. And that being the job description should itself be all you need to know about believing anything these people say that isn't directly related to how the company is going to perform. There are obviously, and look, it's like with investor calls. Now, if you don't know how it works in the US, on investor calls where the CEO is often asked questions by investors and analysts, they have to legally tell the truth. And that's why there are certain points where they just won't talk about anything. Were there not a legal requirement to be honest, you better believe they'd be lying up and down all the time. So outside of those very specific circumstances where they have to tell the truth and often either are simply going to talk in technical terms or aren't going to say anything at all, don't believe anything these people say, even about what they claim they believe in. Unless you know them personally, I would just consider them all to be liars in terms of anything that is outside, again, of things that they are legally required to say or that perfectly align with what the company wants to be as a large organization. That's just a good rule of thumb. And like I said, I think there are some people who still thought that Tim Cook and Apple were different. Well, guess what? They weren't. I don't think they have been for a very long time, certainly not in any way since the days where they might have gone under, where they could kind of act more freely because what did they have to lose? Those days are long over. And if you still labored under that delusion, again, I would refer you to the job description of a CEO, because the thing that you are never going to find in anyone listed anywhere is caring about anything other than making money. Later.